Traffic is moving at high speeds, and other drivers may not anticipate a disabled vehicle. Take a moment to consider the potential hazards before taking action. And remember, every situation will be different, but there are things you can do to reduce the risk of injury. Never get out of your vehicle to make repairs or inspect damage on a busy road. And if possible, drive the vehicle to a safe place before getting out. And by the way, if you are driving on a highway and cannot reach an exit, you may need to pull over on the shoulder. Park as far from the travel lanes as possible. Turn your wheels away from the traffic to stop your vehicle from being pushed back into traffic should it be struck from behind. If you remain in your vehicle, keep your seatbelt on and call emergency services. If you must exit your vehicle, do so on the passenger side, away from traffic. And if you have passengers in the car, they should do the same. Everyone should move as far from the vehicle and the road as possible. For example, if you are on a highway or major road, gather behind the nearest safety barrier or as Hello, everyone. We all have plenty of priorities and never-ending list of items to handle at work. But nothing is more important to us than having everyone arrive home safely.
Welcome to my world. Welcome to
Good morning, folks. If we can start settling down. The good-looking ones come in first, the ones who are afraid of having the limelight coming in last. Okay. And we've got some speakers there frantically preparing their last-minute notes based on the discussions that they've just had. When the Miss South Africa and Miss South Africa runner-up have taken their seats, we will carry on. All right. Okay. You know what's so nice about being with our audience over here, guys? It's like being together with a bunch of friends. And so when I say to you 1 point, what do you all think of? Come on. Hey, okay. And you know what? I love that last comment that said to prove a point. Eh? And I think, do we need to prove any more than what we've accomplished? And that, of course, leads us very nicely into the subject for discussion, which is road safety. And that said, I do think we have to prove a point. And the fact that we get people together of like mind who are non-political in the business sense, that see that they can bring value to what we do, it's really appreciated. So to every one of you here, whether you're a speaker, a panelist, and please, we're leaving some open-ended questions to them because I want them to start sweating now, just so that they give it their very best, or whether you're here just as a guest of ours. And so from me, Eugene, and my team, I'd like to say thank you very much. We've been running this event now for 7 years. I must just tell you, the first event, we did it in combination with our other program, which is Women with Drive, and now they've morphed into 2 separate entities. The first program we had 40 people in attendance. The next one, 80, if I remember correctly, and Nishani and then will tell me if I'm wrong. The third one was 120, of which 140 people pitched up. Now, that's giving you an indication of where we've taken it to. This event, there were 140, if I'm not mistaken, in-person registrations. But you know what happens at the last moment? People have traffic problems, hangovers, and things like that. But we've also got 160 in virtual attendance that registered. So the program will be recorded. And if any of those who would like to hear about some of the facts and figures, we would invite you to listen to it or ask for a copy of it. We're here, though, today to talk about corporate accountability, driving road safety in fleets. And, you know, it is our opinion that whilst we want to, and we do engage with private individuals, our most success comes from B2B, where we can convince fleets to implement good road safety standards. And as a result of them being accountable or having ownership of 65, 70% of the vehicles on the road, can make a real difference. And that's one of the reasons why you may be here today. So we have our headline partner who made this possible. In fact, we've got 2. First is Castrol, BP. It's a division of BP. We'll be having Melanie up in a moment. But when you think about the role that these different things play, you'll notice when we move into our panel discussion, which is treading the influence, that you can give Nishani the benefit of having coined that word, because last year we focused on the alcohol industry, and that was driving the influence, a play on driving under the influence. And I must say, the one thing that we do attempt to do here is not just be a one-off event. We've chosen the 30th of the month, the last day of the month, and what we do now must carry on right through until the end of the festive season, and in fact, into the new year. And just speaking to a few like-minded people over here, the message we will be sharing with you and spreading across, and we trust that we will make a difference. So here's something that maybe Melanie will comment on. Do you know how much oil reserves we have left underground? Anybody like to guess? How many years? The best estimate is about 50 years, and therefore you can understand why. And you have a look at many of the petroleum companies, they're attaching another term to their name, which is energies, alternative energies. Along with that 50 years, the estimate of how many trillion barrels indicate about 1.65 trillion barrels of proven oil reserves. Can we understand why there is a need to move to alternative forms of energy in order to keep our wheels on the road? I do trust that Melanie may comment on that, but it's a subject for another discussion. What I am interested in is hearing how the role that lubricants plays in ensuring that the vehicles that we drive, you and I, in the corporate world, as well as trucks, etc., by paying attention to that, is able to improve their lives of up to 160,000 kilometers. And that's just having the correct lubricants. So without any further ado, Melanie, would you please come and address us? And the theme of your discussion is driving road safety with attention to lubricants and tires. Melanie.
Now, Eugene said something about the book and you're all like, me. I wasn't very amped. Are we going to try that one more time? We won the World Cup. Was that for me, though? Okay. Eugene, I wasn't going to talk about that topic because I saw there was a gentleman from Eskom here, and then it becomes a real tricky conversation, right? Because we talk about the prospects in South Africa of us being able to actually move towards renewable energies. And if any of you know, BP was one of the first companies that actually announced globally that they intended to go net zero. Anyone see that? Half of you didn't even know that BP owned Castrol, right? Oh, I'm going to all test you later. But the interesting concept is, right, you need energy to have vehicles on the road or EV, but we have an energy crisis. True. So that's why I didn't want to comment on it. But the reality is, what I can give you the assurance on is it doesn't matter what the vehicles will be running on in 10, 15, 20 years' time. I can guarantee you Castrol will be in it, whether it be our EV on fluids, whether it be our traditional hydraulic oils, whether it be traditional greases. The reality is, as an organization, we are so committed to the transport industry. And I think just as much as you celebrated the Rugby World Cup, how many of you were stuck in traffic this morning? Put your hand up, don't be shy. I wasn't, because I'm in full on time. But the reality is, you understood that the weather conditions that you drove in today impacted your ability to perform. There was a requirement for you today to get here on time, but you couldn't. So how many of our organizations as corporates take that into consideration when we have an expectation for our goods and services to get where they need to be in full and on time? How many of our companies have goods that travel up from the port in Durban to Johannesburg? Did anyone take into consideration today that the drivers moving your products and goods are traveling through Harrismith that is snowing? The 30th of October, it is snowing in Harrismith. So can we honestly wake up every day as corporates to say that today we've made sure that every single driver out on that road that we have some sort of responsibility for is safe? Anyone courageous enough to put up their hand? I'll put up my hand. As an organization, Castrol has an incredible policy that blows your mind. We will put safety above revenue any day of the week. What does that mean? You will not find Castrol products on our roads between 10 o'clock at night and 4 o'clock in the morning. Why? It's the most dangerous time to drive. Okay, we know our conditions, guys, but let me just tell you, last week I was in Angola. People there drive like they have 9 lives up front. Have you been there? I was driving on a road this big. I wasn't driving because I'd probably die or kill someone. The road is absolutely narrow, fuel tank in front of us. And the next thing, this guy jumps on the back of this tanker and he's got his little container and he opens the tap. But I have to tell you the interesting concept. Do you know how cheap fuel is in Angola? It's one of the cheapest places to get fuel in the world. 30 US cents a liter. Everybody has a generator. So I go there and I'm like, hey, the lights went off. It's load shedding. We have an app. Do you have an app? They're like, you fancy. South Africa's fancy. But that road safety in other countries, we take for granted in South Africa, what we've managed to build as corporates over time, that we've actually really taken responsibility for our people. But just on the rugby topic, some interesting facts. Does anyone know how many people can fill Ellis Park Stadium? Seated 65, double that. About 138,000 people have died due to vehicle accidents in the last 10 years. So just picture that for 1 second. Take Ellis Park times 2 and gone. Can you visualize that for 1 second? Imagine you're standing there and 1 minute you're singing the South African anthem and you've got goosebumps. We all get goosebumps, and the next thing, gone. Because that's how many people die on our roads in this country in the last 10 years. It's a shocking statistic. Can we cue a video? I want to hear oohs and ahs. Okay.
Hello, everyone. We all have plenty of priorities and never-ending list of items to handle at work. But nothing is more important to us than having everyone arrive home safely at the end of the day. Unfortunately, accidents and breakdowns do happen while we are on the road. We must be prepared to handle each situation with safety being our top priority and to reduce the risk of injury or worse. Sadly, this risk was brought home to us earlier this year when a driver transporting BP lubricants was fatally injured. The driver was walking along the roadway after inspecting a flat tire on his trailer and was struck by a passing vehicle. Minor vehicles issues like running out of fuel or flat tire can quickly turn into a tragedy. Every year, drivers and passengers are killed or seriously injured in roadside accidents. If you find yourself in a similar situation, pause for a moment, collect your thoughts, and then follow the safety-first approach. For example, highway shoulders are extremely dangerous places to stop. Traffic is moving at high speeds, and other drivers may not anticipate a disabled vehicle. Take a moment to consider the potential hazards before taking action. And remember, every situation will be different, but there are things you can do to reduce the risk of injury. Never get out of your vehicle to make repairs or inspect damage on a busy road. And if possible, drive the vehicle to a safe place before getting out. And by the way, if you are driving on a highway and cannot reach an exit, you may need to pull over on the shoulder. Park as far from the travel lanes as possible. Turn your wheels away from the traffic to stop your vehicle from being pushed back into traffic should it be struck from behind. If you remain in your vehicle, keep your seatbelt on and call emergency services. If you must exit your vehicle, do so on the passenger side, away from traffic. And if you have passengers in the car, they should do the same. Everyone should move as far from the vehicle and the road as possible. For example, if you are on a highway or major road, gather behind the nearest safety barrier or as far up the grass verge as possible. Never stand behind your vehicle where you are preventing others from seeing your lights or reflectors. Also, never stand between your vehicle and any fixed barrier or another car where you could be trapped should your vehicle be struck. Finally, it's better to wait for assistance to arrive unless you are in a safe spot, familiar with the task, and you have the right gear available, including high visibility vest. Having to stop on a busy highway or remote road can be unnerving. Please, Carefully consider the risk and take a moment to plan your next steps so you can keep yourself and any passengers out of harm's way, because we want you to arrive home safely. Thank you very much.
Some of those images initially takes your breath away, right? So can I tell you that in Castrol, South Africa, we have not had a vehicle accident in the last 10 years. Yeah, you can applaud. And it's for that exact reason why we partner with companies like MasterDrive and we attend events like this. Because in our organization, our most important KPI in order to deliver on our targets, it's not about the revenue, our safety is first. If you haven't taken individual accountability in the organization, the rest of your KPIs don't matter. Because each of us, it's ingrained. I don't know how to try and explain it to people. When you join that organization for the first time, it's not a tick in the box. It's not a, oh, well, we kind of talk about it, but we don't practice it. It becomes so deeply entrenched and ingrained that safety is your biggest KPI. Anything else after that's a bonus, it's great. But if you haven't taken responsibility to ensure that every single person in our organization goes home safely, we have failed, right? Just like we have expectations on our governments, other corporates, if we haven't taken that individual accountability, we have failed. Okay, 10 years, that's a pretty big deal. So when you say, why partner with MasterDrive? Well, I think the bigger question is, why not? Because how much is your life? You can't put a presentation together that will justify or even try and emulate how valuable life actually is in this country. Now, I could have spent all the time here telling you about how fantastic Castrol lubricants are, but I thought that was kind of obvious. So when a brand's that good, sometimes you don't have to talk about it, right? But there is that connection. There is that connection with what's going into your car, what tires you're putting on. And the reality is, I don't know about any of you, but I'm more stressed than I've ever been in my whole life. Right, stressed. You're tired. It's October, but it feels like the 24th of December and 12 o'clock is not coming close enough and quick enough. And it feels like that every day. How many of you woke up this morning, saw the rain and thought, oh, I wonder if I can just call in sick? Well, apparently 30 or 40 people did. But that is testament to the pressures we're facing on a daily basis, right? We're stressed, we're tired, but at the same time, we're getting out there, we're putting our drivers on the road, we're putting ourselves on the road. Plus, money's tight. Like, money's really tight, right? See you all nodding, it's rough. And now we're starting to make decisions with, do I put a plate of food on the table or do I change that tire on the right-hand side that's smooth and bald? I'm sure it can go another 5,000 Ks. But it's about stopping and taking that moment and going, those 5,000 Ks, I might not be able to even give my family food tomorrow if I die today. And those are the tough decisions we're making. People are saying, oh, I can't afford Castrol. It's an aspirational brand. It's so expensive. I'll just put this real cheap one in there. Well, can you afford to? Because the reality is that penny wise, pound foolish concept is so true when it comes to something like that. Because that cheap lubricant, you don't know what it's made of. You don't know if it's a re-refined, low-quality base oil that's maybe going to do the job for the next 5 to 10 minutes or 2 days, 3 days. And you're not coming with the more loyal, trusted brands that have come through. We have massive costs, and not just because we paid well. I can promise you we're not paid well. It is really about what goes into the quality of our products. I won't stand up here and tell you Castrol's the best, because there's a lot of us that are the best. And it's because we invest in technology, we invest in the applications, the purposes, what's going into your truck, the greases, the brake fluids. That kind of investment is not just about selling oil or lubricants. That investment is about ensuring that vehicle can continue and safely 3 times, 4 times longer than it should. So when it comes to the lubricants you're using in your vehicles, when it comes to the tires you're using, ask yourself that fundamental question today. And I applaud each one of you. Is my life worth my penny wise, pound foolish behavior? Thank you. Rugby clap.
Hey, Melanie, thank you. No, I must admit, each time that I hear Melanie, she doesn't have a formal presentation, but I'm pretty certain that you'll agree that she touches your heart. Eh? And last year, or this year, at our Fleet Safety Awards, the challenge was, I dare you to care. And the nice thing about Castrol is that they do. Just interesting information that you may like to take away with you. An organization in the UK did some research probably about 10, 12 years ago, what is deemed to be an experienced driver. I remember statistically, and I don't know the latest, we're told that probably 50% of our driver's licenses have been obtained fraudulently. And you watch what happens, I'm sure you'll agree, probably more. Now, when you have a look at that, you think if 50% have on our roads and they've got no experience, where does that lead us? So if this organization, it was the IM, they said it takes roughly 100,000 miles of travel for a driver to be deemed experienced. So in kilometers, that would be 160. And if the average kilometers that we cover on a monthly basis roughly is 3,000, you're talking about 5 years. Now, people at 22, 23, 25 are starting to drive. Does that mean that only by the time they're 30, we can be experienced? The good thing that we are able to facilitate, and let's call it this way, we're able to fast track some of the driving skills that they can acquire as a result of our training. And that is, and I wouldn't like to say it's all because of us that BP has that track record, but I'd like to believe we play a small part. Just before I go on to introduce the next speaker, Melanie mentioned about EVs. You know, there's 3 things that we would need for, let's talk autonomous vehicles, for them to operate in a perfect environment. Because many people say, when we've got fully autonomous vehicles, road safety won't be as big an issue. Sounds cool, doesn't it? But in reality, it's not. But the 3 things that we need, one is a stable power system. Wow. Okay. Secondly, the cameras or LiDARs on the road are supposed to be able to read the markings. You drive a vehicle that's got lane departure assist. You leave it on and suddenly you're hitting the barrier. Eh? And then the third thing is that we must have 5G compatibility. So we're still a long way away from being there, and which means, given the uptake on our energy efficient vehicles, of which, remember, 85% of the energy that's in an EV is used effectively, whereas in an ICE engine, 85% is used to just get it going internally. So with that thought, I'd like to give you another statistic. The 50 years, remember, life left on oil. How much do you think the global insurance industry is worth? Huh? Anybody care to guess? Let me give it to you. At this point in time, $9.8 trillion US. That was measured in 2021. And they estimated that from between 21 to 22, it went from 5.6 to 9.8. And they're estimating a compound growth of 12% per annum to 2027. So with that in mind, we've invited our other headline partner, which is Santam, to come and talk to us on the theme. And this is Pitt Nell, the connection between insurance and tires. Pitt Varshay. He's got to sit right at the back. Give him the long walk. You know, when you're on an aircraft and the last person that's holding up the flight, give him the clap. All right. Pitt, over to you.
Okay, morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk to you about various topics, various applicable to the insurance policy and to road safety and the care of vehicles that's on our roads today. So firstly, those are the type of subjects we're going to handle today. We're going to look at the challenges in the HCV environment after I've just going to mention a few topics in terms of the background. Then we'll look at insurance claim, the roadworthiness, risk management, as well as then I'll just touch shortly on driver's licenses, which is part of driver wellness and ensuring that drivers are adequately skilled and competent to drive the relevant vehicles. We all know that transport is the backbone of our economy. It contributes about 8% of the GDP, employs over 500,000 people. We all know that whatever we see, whatever we consume, whatever we touch, is at some stage in life transported by the road infrastructure. Now, according to the National Traffic Information System, what we call it, also referred to as NATIS, there's 371,000 trucks on the road and more than 557,000 trailers. Busiest routes, we all know the N3. It's October now, December, we're going on holiday, so we're going to spend some time on the N3 to go to KZN, the busiest road in South Africa. Second busiest, those that love to go to Cape Town, that's the second one, it's the busiest. But we must not forget all the other roads that's extremely busy. The N1, North Corridor into East Africa, the N4 into Mozambique, and all the other roads. Just think of the amount of coal trucks transporting coal from the Highveld to Richards Bay. Manganese from the Northern Cape to Port Elizabeth Harbour. So it's not only the busiest routes where we have a concern about road safety, it's really applicable to all our roads in the country. That's a grim bit of statistics. Road safety has costed the South African industry 1 trillion rand over the last 7 years. 164 billion rand the last 5 years obtained from the RAF for road fatalities. 14,000, when you've touched on it, double the size of Ellis Park. 14,000 deaths at average on the road per annum. We can understand that with that, it's a high-risk environment. If the government, the insurance, people like MasterDrive, Castrol, and all other relevant stakeholders don't contribute, we will land up, and we can land up, that the risk exposure is just so high that it becomes uninsurable. And road fatalities will then also be on the increase. We know the cost of trucks. New trucks easily over 2 million rand. You add the trailer combination of another 1 million rand. You add the cost of the load. That combination that's on the roads easily worth 4 million plus. Can you think 1 trillion rand to the economy, 164 billion rand on road fatalities? That's the reason for it. There's just so many high value vehicles on our road. But as the economy tightens, there's generally a lack of maintenance to our roads, unfortunately. We all know what the road infrastructure is doing at the moment. It's simply not geared for all the vehicles on the road. I don't think you can drive, apart from maybe on the freeways, any other road without being at risk of a pothole every now and again, or some road signs that's been just taken out by accidents and not being replaced, road markings that's not adequate, etc., etc. We must not forget about our socio-economic challenges in South Africa. Even old CL mentioned that in his interview after they won the World Cup. There's lots of things wrong in our country. And this contributes to a massive amount and a risk of riots and strikes. Just think recently all the attacks on the trucks in the KZN and the Mpumalanga area. Torching of trucks. That has an impact on our economy, has an impact on the lives of people, and has an impact on our infrastructure. Then we need to look at repair cost. What is it costing to repair accident-related damages? First, you have to look at the frequency and the severity of accidents. So sometimes the severity of accidents taking place on our roads is just much more than other times. And there's various reasons for that. But the rand dollar is not doing us a favor at this point in time. But apart from that, these are the costs that can increase the repair cost of vehicles. Technology, more technology in vehicles than before. The older vehicles only had a steel bumper. What we see today, very sophisticated material, sometimes plastic, but sophisticated plastic of good quality. But behind the bumper, we see electronics. And with the slightest of impact, electronic failure takes place. There's a list of things, and it's not just isolated to what I've mentioned here. Transporters are changing their fleets. Many transporters are now leasing fleets, and they're not owning the fleets any longer. The impact of that from manufacturers are, it's their vehicles, so it's their brand. They need only original equipment parts on their vehicle. There's a cost to that. If we just look at this, older model vehicles, Mr. Templeton, I just use the Scania as an example. It's not applicable to Scania, please. It's just an example. The older model vehicles, the average repair cost was in the region of about 300,000 Rand. With the newer vehicles, it's jumped to 750,000. If you look at the different brands and you compare the same parts, the same repair cost, it differs due to part price variances from different brand vehicles. We've taken a sample of 22 accident, we call it crash parts, typical body parts that gets damaged in an accident. We've analyzed the cost of those parts in 2012 right through to 2022. Those 22 parts carried an average cost in 2012 of 171,000 Rand. If you apply inflation to it and let's just use an average of 6% per annum, the cost should be at 306,000 at the end of 2022, which is 179%, 180% increase over a 10-year span. The reality is those parts at the end of 2022 is standing at 428,000 Rand. It's a 250% increase over the last 10 years. But insurance premiums generally been stagnant due to pressures in the market. At some instances, even lowering premiums to accommodate business. Now, 250% increase on parts, and parts normally reflect about 70% of your repair cost. You can imagine the commodity is under severe pressure of not being able to sustain the risk. Those are just typical parts thereof. If you look at those parts with the arrow engine mountings, the older model had much more flexibility in all directions. The newer models have got flexibility to a lesser extent, not all angles. So it generally easier break. The cost from 1,200 to over 7,000 Rand for the item. It's just an example of it. If you look at all the plastics, in the past there were screws attaching it. Now it's got a sleek look, but it's clips. and the clips break. Slight impact, the clips break, you need to replace it, you can't repair it any longer. The reality is accidents happen. You can't get away from that. And as accidents happen, we need to entertain the insurance claim. I hope I'm going to get this thing running. Just bear with me. There you are. It's running. Just have a look. There's so many good road users out there. Just have a look at what one vehicle does. It's carnage on our roads. We all know that. So in the previous video that was shown, I wouldn't only be scared to get out of the vehicle when it breaks down next to the road. I'm actually scared to be in a vehicle whilst on the road. Accident damage is one thing. Think about the lives of beloved family and friends that's at stake. You need to know your insurance contract. Part of your insurance contract will talk about the road, the roadworthiness of vehicles. We'll touch on risk management, and then lastly, we'll touch on the maintenance aspect. Because all of these are integrated into one another, and we can't just talk about one in isolation. The roadworthiness of vehicles. Most, if not all, insurance policies has a clause of roadworthiness. Now, what is roadworthiness? Your vehicle needs to be in a safe operating condition as required by some standards. Needs to be able to operate safely on the road. But that's not just an annual thing. We all know if we have to renew licenses on goods vehicles, before we renew the license, we need to go for a roadworthy certificate. But ladies and gents, if you don't do it throughout the year, you're at high risk throughout the year. You can't just attend to it annually. It needs to be an everyday aspect to attend to. Those are typical the things that the road traffic and law enforcement will look at in terms of roadworthiness of vehicles, and it's not restricted to those. But Santam has joined MasterDrive and various other stakeholders to look into driver wellness. Because one thing is, my vehicle is roadworthy. Ish. What about the driver? How well is the driver being cared for while he's operating that vehicle? There's all sorts of initiatives on the freeways. Roadblocks are being held, vehicles are pulled off, interviews are conducted with drivers. While that gets done, the vehicle gets checked by law enforcement for its roadworthiness and overloading. And then there's qualified nurses. They screen the diabetic condition of the driver, blood pressure, all sorts of those things. You know that in the survey that was done with drivers, turns out 70% of them suffer from lifestyle diseases. That's scary. Truck drivers are far more likely to be obese compared to the rest of the population. Why is that? They are being pushed to work extremely long hours. They don't get time to do exercise. The conditions where they are not conducive for exercising. They don't eat well. A garage pie and a Coke. Those are the type of things. So although telematics and systems can look after vehicles, the well-being of the drivers are critical to road safety. They are the people that also look after the tires. They're the people to go and check and inspect the tires on a daily basis. But do they know what a unroadworthy tire looks like? Some do, some don't. Do all of you know what it looks like? We've spoken about earlier about, that car, now it can still go 5,000, because if I fit the tire now, I might not be able to go out for another jol or two while I'm on vacation. Is it real? So look at that. Is there something wrong in that photograph? Drivers get distracted. They can't concentrate on the road. Be in the hand and someone to talk to. Not concentrate on the road. Forgetting to inspect in the mornings, to inspect the tires before departing. It's scary. We look at tires, how many of you know what all the information on the tire is? How many even know that there are stuff on tires printed? Huh? I once spoke to Butch James. He was a former rugby player, and he was, saying that his boot went to the rugby match there in the Shark Tank in KZN, but he took his wife with. Now they were mingling, and they decided, well, before the game starts, they'll meet each other at a point. The next thing was, she phoned him. She said, I don't know where I am, but I'm standing where a place with 2 poles. Can you come and meet me here? So she had no clue what rugby was about, but she was there to enjoy it. What do you know about your tires? There's a legal requirement. 1 millimeter thread. Canvas can't show. The thread patterns need to be in order. This is just some information that government, in a study that's mentioned, that tire pressure is one of the most important aspects. Tire pressure, if monitored correctly, can contribute to lesser breakdowns, better handling of your vehicle, increase in the lifespan of tires, reducing your cost. Do everybody know that? Those are typical example of non-roadworthy tires. Okay. Thread on the sides. If you look at that tire, there's some cracks on it. That's not manufactured like that. That's caused by heat and by overinflation, overinflating, etc., etc. But these are typical tires that's on the roads as we speak today. Look at those. Some damage to the sidewalls, some cracks to the sidewalls from potholes, etc., etc. As we speak, those are the tires that's on the road. It influences the roadworthiness of that vehicle, which is conditional to insurance policies. That's a risk for transport. Lastly, I'm going to touch on driver's licenses. Different codes for different type licenses. What is the license? Remember, a license don't expire. Only the card expires. But a PDF, a PRDP, expires after 2 years. You need to renew it. If it's a goods vehicle, you need to have PRDP. But there's lots of information on the license card that you can view. Don't just accept it if the driver or potential driver coming into employment says, now I've got a license. Go and check. Make sure you know where all the information is on. I'm almost done. A PRDP. And those are typical things we discover during insurance claims. People are not correctly equipped with a correct code license. They're not equipped with a PRDP. If you convey passengers, goods, or dangerous goods, you need to have a PDP. Now, applying for PDP is one thing. Medical fitness, police record. What's the reason for that? They check whether you've had any previous convictions that can contribute to road rage. Can you imagine that oak behind the steering of 32 tons, driving at 100 kilometers an hour, or even 120, some of them, if road rage comes in? Chaos. Are there any questions? It's obvious. Hey? Fifth time we will win it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
There's a man who obviously speaks with passion. Just so that you know, he's retiring in 14 days' time. Is that correct? So let's give him a well-rounded applause for that. Okay. Melanie made reference to Ellis Park as a football stadium or rugby stadium where 138,000 people would die. Okay. You know, the other one that I use is an analogy of a jumbo jet or aircraft, such as the Airbus crashing. It's equivalent to one of those crashing every 10 days, the amount of people we kill on our roads. Now, my typical question is, if that were happening, do you think we would take it in a more serious light? I tend to believe that we do, and we would. So therefore, whilst we, and this please, I'm not criticizing government because they got their own challenges, but it's like-minded organizations that can participate in making a difference. And even if it's 1 day, 1 kilometer, and one life at a time. Just before I introduce the next speaker, I'd like to use this as an opportunity to introduce you to 3 people. As you may well know, I get involved, and both certainly BP and Castrol are involved, various NPOs that promote road safety. One of them is RSP. It's a program that we run in conjunction with a number of companies to educate school children. I have here in the audience today my vice chair and our general manager, and I want them to stand up so that if they get to speak to you, they can share some of the good work that we do. Sandeli, Lucky, where are you? Please stand up. Sandeli. Thank you. It's a project well worthwhile investing in, and we give a lot of our time to making a difference to the people who will be our drivers of tomorrow. The other one is it's a road safety foundation. It's an activity run by an individual that every year, every long weekend, that you having a nice, enjoyable time with friends, family, and the like. He and his team are dedicated to looking after people at Van Reenen's Pass. With no cost, they will assist any persons with regard to medical emergencies, even with transport. And so I'd like to just ask Philip Hull, where are you, Philip, to stand up? And there's a man that he's been doing this for 42 years. He's only 21, right? But forget the contradiction. All right, just as we move through to our next speaker, it's going to be Mark Templeton. And I'm going to give you some food for thought, because he's speaking about the role of OEMs in ensuring safety in tires. Now, when you start looking at what happens, that is the theme, eh? Okay, just have a look at what sustainability is all about. You know, CO2 emissions. So how many grams do you think a diesel engine produces for every liter of fuel consumed? I know this is probably strange technology to you or terminology, but I'm going to leave it with you. 2.7 grams. Now, if you had to look at what consists of transport, it's ship, air, rail, and road. Eh? Just listen to these the CO2 emissions that come from this. A ship every kilometer will generate 25 grams of CO2 emissions. A train, 65. A truck, 105. And air cargo or air freight would be 500. So as you can see, we're at the third worst over there. And therefore, when we talk about sustainability and safety, the fact is that they go hand in hand. And if you want to share the thoughts with us later, we'll happily do that. Let me introduce Mark, please, from Scania.
I hope can you hear me at the back there? Cool. And thanks for stealing my opening line. I normally start with how many kilograms of CO2 does 1 liter equate to when you burn it? And it's 2.64 kilograms of CO2. So just to put that in context, it's frightening. So the biggest current polluter in South Africa is actually not transport, comes from the coal fields of the eastern province, or the Mpumalanga, sorry, Sasol and the power station. So they're the two biggest polluters in South Africa, and then behind that is transport. So I'm going to start a presentation. All right, so I'm going to read the first bit because to me it's a bit of a mouthful, but I think it's quite important to put it in context and really to step back a bit. 2 weeks ago, I was at a parent company in Sweden, in R&D, research and development side, and when I went there last, there were 3,500 people in R&D. Today, in Södertälje, in Sweden, there's 6,500 people in R&D in Sweden, and it's the move. It's the decarbonization of fleet, of transport going forward. And it's a move to the more green solutions, and I'll touch on that a bit later. And of course, it's a move to electrification. That's where all the research and development is going into. So there's a massive shift happening. How quickly it will happen in Europe and how quickly it will happen in South Africa is going to be to be debated. I think we just spoke a bit earlier about Eskom, the impact of Eskom on the local economy. And just to add a little bit more context to that, from 2010 to 2022, South Africans imported 135 billion rands worth of solar, battery and windmills into the country in that 12-year period. So the dependence that the private industry is seeing on Eskom is reducing. The risk factor that the private industry is seeing with Eskom, and if you look at the energy availability factor, it's gone from 100% in 2006 to 52% in 2022. So people are no longer relying on Eskom for electricity generation. I don't know if that's really kind of puts it in context. So let me start. Sustainable transport is all about moving people and goods while contributing to the economy and social development without jeopardizing human health, safety, and endangering the environment. I think very broad, very high level type of statement. It really sounds fantastic, but that's what Scania believes in going forward. Scania's purpose is to drive the shift towards a sustainable transport system, creating a world of mobility that is better for business, society, and the environment. For Scania, sustainable transport is about more than decarbonization. It's about meeting the needs of people, society, throughout the transport ecosystem. And I think it's very, it's a broad statement, but if you look at Scania, in context, we've got the broadest alternative fuel product offering in the world of all OEMs. So we've got diesel, of course, everybody's got diesel. We've got biodiesels, and I'll come to that a bit later. We've got the gases, we've got the BEV, we even got ethanol engines. And of course, the latest challenge on the block is hydrogen. Everybody's harping up about hydrogen, but I'm not going to cover that today. We spoke about South Africa, how many people die on the roads in South Africa. It's 1 million people a year die on the roads globally through transport. And strangely enough, trucking is seen as the most visible and the most, and everybody blames trucking, but it's all part of that mix. Transport should be safe not only for drivers and transport users, but for all road users. And I think you can see the theme from Castrol, you can see the theme from Santam, all about the safety of the driver and of course, the people on the road. That's pedestrians, that everybody included. I'm not going to go into too much more. I think the big issue I've got at the bottom is what is the correct stopping distance for a truck fully laden at 56 metric tons to dead stop? What do you think the stopping distance is in meters? Any proposal? Pardon? At 80 kilometers an hour, it's fair, yeah. Any other proposals? 200. I'm going to ask everybody, so why does cars decide to pull in front of a truck and slam on brakes? Isn't that suicidal, putting a gun against your head and saying, shoot me or shoot myself? The legislation says at 60 kilometers an hour, fully laden, it has to stop within 36 meters. At 80 kilometers, there's no legislation, but we're estimated to be 70 to 75 meters. And that's with ABS, EBS, and all the latest braking technology on the truck. So please, I'm asking everybody in this room, stop pulling in front of trucks and slamming on brakes. It's really not cool. And I think Santam would be happy that the insurance drops a bit. Air pollution, and we always look at the emissions from the exhaust systems of the truck. What about the brakes? What about contamination? That's not only about air pollution. That's you just go to that slide. And of course, I've covered tailpipe emissions. It's quite important. And then, of course, 4 million people die annually because of pollution from vehicles. And that is lung, whatever type of ailments they die from. So it's quite important that we look at that. Tailpipe emissions, I'm not going to go through everything there. And the other real concern that we've got is in South Africa, we're Euro 2 standard, Clean Fuels 1. That was promulgated into law in 1998. Why? Europe is Euro 6. They're talking about Euro 7 in 2027 and 2028. And we still a country at Euro 2, 1998 legislation. And now the government has moved that parameter back by another 3 or 4 years. Now they're talking about 2027, we're going to go to Euro 5. And therefore, it's very important that we put pressure on government to really fast track that Clean Fuels 2 Euro 5 standards for South Africa. And East Africa's already gone Euro 5. Namibia's Euro 5. West Africa's gone Euro 5. And you know, 15, 20 years ago, South Africa was the leader on the African continent. We are now the follower in this regard. And of course, right at the bottom, I'm talking about electrification. I'm talking about CNG, compressed natural gas. And of course, you've got the biodiesels, which I'll come to on the next slide. But the next slide, the slide afterwards. And the next slide. So if you look at it, you've got CBG, which is compressed biogas. There is in the country, but nothing not being used as a vehicle fuel. It's being used for generation, electricity generation. You've got LBG, is liquid biogas, not available in the country. HVO is a Rolls-Royce or the Scania of biodiesels. We do not have that biodiesel in the country because legislation doesn't allow for any manufacturer to put a 200, 300, 400 million rand plant into the country. And that's a problem. We've got FAM, which is fatty acid methane. It's basically cooking oil. We've got 40, 50 little plants running in the country, really producing poor quality biodiesel. Again, government legislation doesn't protect this industry, so nobody's prepared to invest. And of course, BEV is really the hot potato on the block, or whatever you want to call it, in Europe. And we've got our first BEV truck in the country. Our competitors have got the first BEV heavy commercial trucks in the country. Yes, it is working. And the customers we're talking to are not depending on Eskom for generation of electricity. They're sourcing it from their solar, battery backups to chargers, electric vehicles. And then all tire manufacturers in South Africa source tires that comply to the SABS standards, which comply to the EN European standards. So it's not, the risk factor of putting the wrong tire on a vehicle is frightening. So it's important that we always fit the right standard. And from Scania's perspective, we fit 2 brands, and predominantly those brands are selected by customers. Our customers prefer certain brands, and we follow their lead, and these reasons for following their lead, and I'll get to that in the next slide. So if you look at it, we should all be running long distance tires in South Africa, but we are not. We're running regional tires. And why we run regional tires, it's a tougher, harder compound tire that can run on roads that have got potholes on. And I hate the term potholes. So if anybody's traveled around South Africa, the Western Cape, I've never seen a pothole. The rest of the country, as you go across that Western Cape boundary to the various provinces, you see potholes. So your long distance tires quality is, it's a softer compound. It gives you better traction, but it does not like pothole, doesn't like gravel roads. So that's why we fit on long distance trucks, regional tires, because they give you a much better lifespan than a long distance tire on the open road. However, some of the fuel companies, and Castrol touched on it now, run long distance tires on fuel tankers because it's safer, better traction, a better rolling, a lower rolling resistance, etc. So I'm not going to go into the rest of it. And it's all about durability, longevity of the tire, ease of balancing. And one of the other problems when we did a survey with our own factory and 10 or 12 of the tire fitters who fit the tires for the commercial vehicle, some of the commercial vehicle tires, they battle to balance. So if you give them 4 brands, they push one brand one side. They do not want to fit that brand of tire because of problems with balancing. And of course, balancing means tires got a vibration. It's not going to give you the distance that you want to run, give you the CPK, cost per kilometer. And then of course, customers prefer brand, and the customer's got a whole ecosystem. The customer's got a whole ecosystem around tire support. So if he doesn't carry a spare tire on his truck, he phones the tire guy if he's got a problem. The tire guy comes up with all over the country. They come and replace the tire, repair it, and he drives on. So they've got a whole ecosystem built into the tire supply. And then, of course, we'll get to the next one. Next slide, a little bit more detail. And this is the analysis that we did with the 4 tire suppliers, the main 4 tire suppliers in the country. So you got your average life, your mean from 120 to 160,000 kilometers. That's your average life of tires. Some of the tires go up to 170 to 200, and some of them, the worst case scenario, only run at 80,000 kilometers. So when the tires finish its first life, they regroove it, they cut the grooves into it, and can give you another 60,000, depending on the quality of the tire. And then, of course, tire pressure is critical. I'm getting a signal I'm running out of time, and we'll touch on tire pressure. And then, of course, recapping of a tire. 2 to 3 recaps on a tire, which is quite important. So a good tire will give an operator 500,000 to 600,000 kilometers with new regrooving, 2 recaps, and then disposal. And then I'm going to start in the bottom left, right-hand corner for everybody. The right tire pressure is critical. And we've touched on it. Every morning, a driver should check all his tires, should check the pressure of the tires, and check the condition of the tires. If it's too low, the life of the tire is affected, and the risk of for the driver becomes higher. And if it's too high pressure, it's also, you lose traction, you gain a little bit on the fuel economy, but everything else doesn't really work. So let's run through it from top to bottom. It's onboard tire. What we're looking at is currently, we're looking at onboard tire monitoring to fast track and to take the risk away from the company, and to really help the driver manage his tire. We're looking at, of course, one of the other indicators is your fuel consumption. if your fuel consumption, you can indicate if the tires are too soft with increasing fuel consumption. Then, of course, all OEMs, and now I've got a generic hat on, all OEMs in plant do tire balancing, wheel alignment of the truck. But the most important thing is that truck needs to have its wheels and trailers aligned properly, because how many times have you driven behind a truck and you actually can see the front left side of the right side of the steer axle? The alignment of the axles is out, and you see that on the trailer, the alignment of the axle, and that affects fuel consumption. So fuel consumption is indication of axle being out of a line. And I see I'm getting signals again. So I'll have to fast track. My apologies. And that's me done. Painful. I think this should be a penalty for you.
You can give that to the
Once again, thanks everyone.
Mark, thank you. You know, the one thing that Mark touched on but didn't directly allude to is the fact that it doesn't matter what technology we've got on the vehicles with regard to the braking systems, etc. If the tires are inadequate, it doesn't matter how good that safety technology is. And I think it was Pitt that mentioned a figure, and if I can maybe just give you the later figure that I've heard, he mentioned 1.64 billion cost to the economy. According to the AA, it's now closer to 200 billion. Can you imagine if we just shaved 10% of that off and it went to education, hospitals, health, or something like that? So clearly there's a lot of things to have done. Now, when we start looking at this, and we run a program for one of the OEMs on trucks, we do benchmarking. Now, we can have all the ability we want and endeavor to share that combined with the technology in vehicles. And yet, if the driver is not motivated to change his behavior, it's almost null and void. I'll give you an example. So, you know, on a truck, if you can reduce 2 liters per 100 kilometers, that's a hell of a saving, over 100,000 kilometers. And when the instructor is busy working with the driver, no, that's not good. You're making me look bad. Now, I don't necessarily think that the driver is to blame, but there's a model introduced by Dr. Fogg, Stanford University. He talks about what you need to do in order to change behavior, and it's on an axis. The one is motivation, and the second one is ability. So if there's high motivation, but little ability, it doesn't work. If there's high ability, but little motivation, it's also not going to work. And so there's a great axis that it talks about where they intersect. And I'll give you the best example. And by the way, one American partner on a distracted while driving app, he was here, and he did an interview with one of the insurance companies. I won't tell you who it is, but they indicated that according to them, 60% of the crashes that they have in their market, which is typical light motor vehicles, are as a result of using the phone while driving. Hey, there's something we can do about that. But how many people you see, notwithstanding the fact that they've got Bluetooth, where do they have the phone? In their hand, near the ear. So there's a drive that we have to prevent distracted while driving. So just getting back to that Fogg's model, let's assume that, and there's factors that would contribute motivation, pain, reward. If you know if somebody, your kid or family member died as a result of using the cell phone while driving, do you think you're motivated to not want to use the phone? You agree, huh? Absolutely. Now, let's take it. So you're highly motivated. But I tell you that every time you get into your car, you must switch off the phone, go put it in the boot in case you need it later. When you get back, you switch it on, etc. How motivated are you to do that? Because now we're making it very complex. You agree? If, however, there was an app that says, the moment I get into the car, it deactivates my phone. You see, simple use, simple ability, along with high motivation can ensure the results. So the challenge to drivers then is how do we motivate them to change behavior? Many of them have got great ability. So how do you and I change behavior? And that's why when you have a company like BP that has in 10 years, 0, it says something with regard to motivation. And I'd love to unpack our driver behavioral model that we're working on that can benefit you. While we introduce the next, can I have our guest panel up here, please? Don't be shy. Come along. Do you want me to call you out by name? You know who you are. And if we can have Nabil from Goodyear on the back of the screen there, please. Okay, if you're not coming through, that's Ndu. Dale, you come along. Vishal. We also got Shane. Where are you, Shane? Come on, Shane. Keith. Listen, you know each other. Why are you introducing yourselves again? Come, guys. And then Dale, who's from Ford Company. Please take a seat. What? And Nabil is in the background. Hi, Nabil. Say hello to the audience. He's the good-looking dude that stayed home after the rugby because he couldn't make it in person. All right. So just here's some interesting information. As I indicated to you last year, we did Driving the Influence. And this year, we're talking about trading the influence because it has to do with tire safety. Doesn't matter what technology there is. And so I think Pitt showed some of the better pictures of tires. And that would probably be the standard in certain parts of Africa. In South Africa, we have higher expectations. So we got together a panel of experts. We've been working with SATMC in the last while to educate road users. And please bear in mind that whatever we do here, we're wanting to extend right through the festive season and beyond into 2024. Let me just introduce them. Put your hand up, is it? And do. Chairperson, Managing Executive, SATMC. Nabil, Marketing Manager. Shane, there we are. You are Executive Manager. It's a new title, isn't it? I thought you were the boss. Vishal, National Director of SAPRA and TIPA, and he'll talk about whistleblowing in the tire industry. You'll find that interesting. And then, of course, Dale is the Product Brand Manager. Here's an interesting comment. Let's just talk about Ford. I'll give you some interesting figures over there. Who is the biggest, and don't blame me, guys, I took this from Google, the biggest tire manufacturer in the world as at the end of 2022? Anybody like to guess? Lego. Hell. Guys, we're serious here. Okay, Michelin. There's a total, then it's followed by Bridgestone, followed by Goodyear, and then Continental. Continental couldn't make the discussion. We did invite them, all right? But maybe they're scared to face you guys, all right? And then, of course, we have, here's another interesting fact. When you consider driving your car on the road, the tread reduces, correct? How much do you think it reduces? How much rubber do you lose? Ever thought about it? How much, if you compound that, is that in a year? Just some interesting facts. A tire average, and don't argue with me, right? 11.5 kilograms. By the time it reaches the tread wear indicator, it's reduced to about 9 kilograms. So that's 3 kilograms that it's losing a tire dust per kilometer on the road per day. That's what we're losing. And it gives you a grand total of 14.4 million tons of rubber that's been rubbed off those tires. Where does that find its way into? The ecosystem, doesn't it? The air we breathe, the food we eat, and the rivers that we fish in. So clearly tire use, we're not going to get rid of it in the next while. So let's talk about how we can do something positive with regard to road safety. Let's kick off with Ndu. Let's just ask you 1 or 2 questions. Tell us who you are. Okay, and then let me find out your question. Are you married? No, so it was somebody else. Tell us about the organization and what role it plays.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gene, and greetings to everyone. Nduduzo Kala, I am the Managing Executive of the SATMC. SATMC looks after the 4 local tire manufacturers. We are a industry association, so that takes care of all of the trade policy issues, I think the competition issues or regulations for the 4 tire local manufacturers. That's the SATMC. And then I think from a priority point, one is economy, hence I think the trade policy issues. Secondly would be the environmental topics or regulations. And I think I ended with this one, but it's the most important one, safety. And I think the awareness that we try to bring to commuters as part of the 4 local tire manufacturers as well, I think that is core to also why they exist in terms of, I think, what they push. One of the elements is safety. We talk about SPQP. One of that is safety. And I think we as the SATMC pride ourselves in terms of pushing the narrative, and also it's the local manufacturers who produce them.
Thank you. Later, I'm going to ask you about tire imports. And we're not talking about the good guys, all right? We're talking about the challenges. And I hope nobody here goes and buys a tire on the side of the road, eh? Anybody? Do you know of somebody who does it? Yeah, we all do. Okay. All right. I'm going to ask Shane first, please. He's the executive manager at Bridgestone, South Africa. Now, remember, we're talking about fleet safety. So the question to you is, in a fleet, who takes responsibility to ensure that the tires on those vehicles are good?
Yeah, that would be the driver.
Can we have a mic here, please? Okay. Go for it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that would be the driver. You know, when we all got our licenses, we did the thing called the K53. And when you did your test in the yard, part of that test was check the tires, check the wheel nuts, check the condition of the tires, look at the windscreen wipers and all the other things. So responsibility sits with the driver before he gets in that vehicle and starts a journey on any road, whether that's somebody, your wife, your gran, your kids, or in a corporate environment, a fleet driver, they take responsibility for the tires.
Just staying with you, Shane, we've all participated or know of Fleet Watch's road safety initiative, Tyre Watch, all right? If you look at a vehicle's tires and their condition, what does that tell you about the overall fleet policy with regard to maintenance? What can you conclude from that?
Yeah, so there are a lot of companies out there that do take responsibility. We actually did some event in Cape Town on Friday with Road Accident Fund, and we looked at some vehicles out there. I think we pulled over about 30 vehicles, checked, and about 10 of them were actually pulled to the back and impounded on the day. None of them were corporate companies. And that's I think where the responsibility sit with the corporate companies. They may be in tune with having policies in place, drivers trained, you know, and that's the environment that we work with. And obviously we try and educate outside of that environment, which is a little bit more difficult. To get to every one of those transporters is not that easy.
Yeah. Don't you agree, though, it's an indication that if the tires are neglected, the rest of the vehicle is going to be neglected.
Absolutely.
And
exactly what we saw on Friday.
And that's what we see, what happening causes those deaths. Have you seen some buses on the road? They pull it over and the windscreen wipers, but wait, the driver says, no, you don't, it works like this. You must put it like that. Okay. So clearly there's bigger issues. Let's talk to Keith a moment. Pitt, no, who was it? Mark, spoke about regrooving. Pitt, hey, gets another 60,000 kilometers. Just talk to us what that is. Is it safe? Is it permissible? Because I can take my car tires, you know, my Dunlops or whatever it is, and regroove them. Talk to me. There we are.
Okay, so first of all, regrooving on truck and bus radial tires is perfectly legal. Michelin is a big one for that. I know I've worked for Michelin myself. It does help with adding or lowering your CPK in your fleet. It is sold as, I wouldn't say sold, it's an after-sales service that Michelin do offer. A lot of the other tire companies do recommend it. However, we don't suggest it here in South Africa because of our wonderful road conditions. And the casing's already compromised by the time you do get to regroove the tire. So on truck and bus, mainly on truck, I wouldn't say on bus, coaches, etc. A lot of the transporters don't like to do it because of the safety factor of it. However, on passenger car radial tires, this is becoming a huge problem. Second-hand part-worn tires are being sourced off rubbish dumps, off scrap piles, etc. They're finding their way onto the side of the streets, and these folks are cutting into the casing, into the undertread. And as you know, there's not a lot of undertread on a normal passenger vehicle tire. So invariably what happens is they expose the rayon or steel brake applies, and any material that a tire is manufactured from that does come into contact with water will cause a premature tire failure. So what we are finding is, as you all know, a tire is a grudge buy. People want it, they don't want to pay for it, but they can't do without it. So what do people do? They shop around. In the tire industry today, and I think I speak on behalf of most of the guys, the first question you ask is when you introduce yourself, you know, I work for a company. The first question is, can you get cheap tires? Okay. There is no such thing as a cheap tire anymore. Trust me, with the 4 local manufacturers and throughout Europe, the safety is crucial. Safety is the #1 priority. So regrooving of passenger car tires is absolutely, absolutely illegal. So it is becoming a huge bone of contention now, and it's causing a lot of collisions on the roads now.
Thank you, Keith. So clearly the message is that regrooving under certain circumstances is acceptable, but certainly on passenger vehicles, like commercial vehicles, it's a no-no. That's the message that we need to take away. Let's go to Nabil. Nabil, we know that we're carrying this message through to the festive season. So the question to you is, what are the most common tire problems that we could expect to see during the build up to the festive season? And how can these be prevented?
Thanks. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome. So yeah, with regards to tire problems that occur during the festive season, we got to look at it twofold. One could be potentially from the tire, but also just some of the road hazards that you have on the road today. What we've noted during the festive season, and I'm sure the panel can agree, is that we do see a lot of drivers on the road during this period. That is obviously something that we need to take into consideration, especially from driver fatigue, driver mental health, and also just all around mental or reckless, sorry, we call them mental drivers, but reckless drivers rather. Aside from that there, though, it's just general tire maintenance that we also need to take into account when we do travel over the festive period. Many of us do long distance driving to go out to see loved ones and families. And also some of us travel from inland to coastal areas, which was mentioned earlier on, I believe by Santam, where many people go either to Cape Town or to KwaZulu-Natal. People forget to take into consideration that tire pressures vary also between the air and the atmosphere that you're in at that stage. So traveling from inland to coastland, your tire pressures, which was mentioned earlier on as well by one of the panelists, is quite important. And this differs when traveling from place to place. Similarly, also, something that we do tend to forget quite often is our spare tire. Everybody sees it, leaves it in the boot, and then after that, it's forgotten about. But to make sure that your spare tire is also kept in good condition, working condition, and is inflated to the right temperature will also help you when you're on the road over the festive period.
Hey, Nabil, thank you. Just while you're online, talk to us about overloading. We know we see these taxis, and you've seen some of these vehicles that are going to load twice the height of a Quantum. Effectively, that's been overloaded. What's the impact on the tires there?
So there's a few things that you need to take into consideration in this regard, but overloading generally is the capability of a tire. So something that we need to speak about is utilizing the right tire for the right application. Some tires do accommodate for extra load, whereas some don't. Putting that kind of pressure on your tire does obviously impact its accurateness for what its application is meant to be. This will also impact the inflation of the tire and also just the wear of the tire over that period. So overloading is quite a dangerous task. You need to make sure that you have the right tire to support this, but also have the right inflation, which you can see that's generally indicated by the vehicle OEM and that's taking a look at laden and unladen weight.
Thanks. I was in a truck rental company in one stage. Remember the Toyota Dyna? Little 2.5 ton, supposed to carry 2.5 ton. Caught one of the renters who had a load of wet sand on, and it was sitting at 7 tons. So the tires theoretically can cope with it, but if it fails, we have a major problem. Dale, I'm going to come to you after I speak to Vishal, so I'm giving you time to collect your thoughts. Vishal, Automechanica, that's where we got together. You introduced a new program. It's called the TIPA Whistleblower, an Industry Compliance Forum. Tell us about it. What's the intent?
Okay, thank you very much. So firstly, I think as South Africans, we all have a responsibility to make sure that we push towards a compliant society. And this topic cannot ring more true. You know, if you think about tires, you think about the parts arena, the illicit trade, you think about counterfeit products and the impact it has on consumers, it's significant. So we all have a responsibility. What does that mean? We need to start taking hands, hold hands together, and drive towards a more compliant society where we are all ultimately accountable for our actions. Now, in order for us to do that, what we found as TIPA, very necessary. TIPA
Just tell us what TIPA is.
Yeah, the Tyre Equipment and Parts Association, one of 8 trade associations within the RMI, that's the Retail Motor Industry Organization. Now, the RMI represents just over 9,000 automotive aftermarket businesses. We have a role, you can imagine, in terms of making sure that the vehicles that are on South African roads are repaired to an acceptable standard, and ultimately talking to road safety and improve road safety. What consumers unfortunately don't understand is their role that they play in that space. And like Keith mentioned, it is a grudge purchase, especially tires, and so too are parts. Maintenance and vehicles are also grudge purchases. So what we decided as industry, we're going to come together and formulate an industry compliance forum driven on the back of cases reported through whistleblower hotlines. Now, has the model worked before? Yes, it has. You heard my introduction, spoke to two portfolios. One is petroleum and two is the Tire Equivalent Parts Association. In the petroleum sector in particular, during COVID, we experienced major proliferation of illegal product into the market, which was, amongst others, fuel entering cross-border, theft from pipelines, diesel adulteration and the likes. In a space of 2 years alone, we went through, just on my whistleblower hotline, which is SAPRA, 130 cases reported, but collectively just over 200 cases reported into an industry compliance forum, and that's at government level. Now, the compliance forum includes all statutory stakeholders, which was very good. We brought in SAP, SARS, all critical stakeholders. And the model is based on taking ownership as industry collectively in a shared accountability model to work with statutory bodies and find solutions and bring about reform in the industry. That's the concept. And what we found is when we changed our position from pointing fingers at government to collaboratively working with government, we realized much better results. Now, just to give you an idea, on those 200 odd cases that were reported, roughly 70% of them have been investigated with fines, penalties, arrests made. Now we're talking big money. This is big business, right? Arrests made and a noticed slowdown, I can tell you, in 2023 in terms of the cases being reported. That tells us the model's working. We've done a similar thing in the in the parts arena, and we've launched the concept.
You've only got an hour. Eh?
We've had some big hitters. Thank you. We had some big hitters that participated in the program, including my colleague sitting to the left of me, Charles de Villiers from TIASA, AutoZone. Quite a few big hitters. Really, what it is industry coming together and taking ownership for their sector and cleaning up the industry. I'll stop there.
Okay, but before you leave, individual whistleblowing, does it work? Is it effective?
Okay, so individual whistleblowing, I think everyone knows, you can see what's in the media at the moment. When you individually whistleblow through a direct link, you're always under risk of reprisal. You're always under risk of threats, etc., etc., etc. Why does the model work with industry whistleblowing? Is it goes through a conduit and there is a little level of protection that takes place, hence why it's more accepted. So the idea for industry bodies to take ownership of the concept and drive this will eventually realize much better results for us here, South Africans.
Thank you. To all the media, if any media you speak to me afterwards, I'll give you Vishal's private mobile number because he would like to take your calls. Okay, folks, let's move across to Dale. Dale, 2022, Ford sold 4.2 million vehicles through dealers and distributors. Eh? Quite a phenomenal number. And here's a figure that in 2012, Ford produced about 8,797 cars per day. Does that sound about right? Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds
so
right.
you fit a lot of tires, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Plenty of tires.
So when we had Mark over here talking to us about OEMs on the truck side, a customer kind of dictates, eh? What is the, when I say policy, please just give us the correct terminology. So when you manufacture Ranger in South Africa, what determines what tires are fitted to that vehicle?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into it, right? It's engineered over a lengthy period of time. So much research is done. Again, customers play a key part, right? It's down to the application of the car, though, right? So the size, right? Will it be 16, 17, 18? What profile will it be? The width, etc. Ranges for loading, so it needs to be able to, as we spoke about, withstand the loads that people are going to put on it. It's going to tow heavy up, caravans, boats, trailers, whatever it may be. It has to, the tire that gets fitted needs to be suitable to that, as well as the tread, right? So some guys are going to go off-roading, others are going to use it more on-road. Does it get an all-season tire? Does it get an all-terrain? I guess majority of our Rangers will get an all-season as standard with the option to...
Just explain all-season. There's people... Who knows what all-season is here? Or who doesn't? No, maybe that's embarrassing. Eh? We don't want to admit. So just give us the benefit of your
Yeah,
expertise.
so I guess an all season is more for predominantly an on-road vehicle, on-road tire, right? So you would use it on the highways or on tar roads predominantly, with limited off-road usage. Where if you opt for an all-terrain, you'll use the vehicle more off-road, right? So farmers or guys, that do off-roading or 4x4 would opt for an all-terrain tire. And then we can go one step further. I guess we consider a light truck tire on a Raptor, for example, as you may know, right, with a more aggressive tread, predominantly for off-road use. So that vehicle will probably be off-road more than it's on-road. And yeah, I guess those are the factors, right, that we would consider. There's a lot more that goes into it. I'm sure the tire guys will be able to tell you.
Listen, you know what I'm going to ask Mark Dale just now? He's going to have lots of time to think about it. Why do I, when I buy a new vehicle, get a Goodyear, or why do I get a Bridgestone? So let's leave him to stew for a while, and let's get on to Keith again. Now, I'm sure that many of us have driven through some of the communities where not only is the suspension lowered, and they've now put low profile tires on, they stretch the tire. Have you seen it? Eh? Let's Keith answer what's the challenges with that.
First of all, it's becoming a huge problem. And this is what we call drop suspension and wide tires. All right, so first of all, with the young blood today, everybody wants a cool, nice looking lowered vehicle. The problem is that these guys don't actually realize what they're doing. Just to give you an idea, they take hypothetically a 165/50 R15 tire, which is supposed to go on a 5.5-inch rim or a 5J rim, and they now go and place it on an 8.25-inch rim, which is nearly double the width. What they now do is they stretch the sidewalls of the tire out. What they do forget is that on every tire, the bead area has got a 15-degree taper. So when they do stretch these tires out, a tire's sidewall is designed to work in a straight up and down motion. It's not designed to work at a 45-degree angle. So what happens now is, this is why you see these guys traveling at 40 k's on the highway, because they cannot go any faster for the mere reason that tire can or unmount itself with any sudden lateral forces. If they go through a dip or something like that, or they have to brake or corner quickly, those tires stand a 99.9% chance of actually unseating themselves off the rim and causing a collision. It is highly, highly dangerous. Last week, Shane and I were in the Cape, in the Western Cape, with the traffic department and that, and it's becoming a huge problem, not only here, but all over the country. So we're hoping to do something about it in the very near future. So next time you see a guy bouncing along the highway, please just do me a favor, stay far away from him. Because, yeah, there's a strong possibility that those tires can unseat off the rims of that vehicle and cause a collision.
Yeah, kind of lends a new perspective to it. Hey? And let's get back to you. We've heard some of the good things. Since we're talking about treading the influence, and it's really about the road safety message, talk to us about some of the initiatives that you as an organization are engaged in with a view to educating the public and the like.
No, thanks for that, Eugene. I think both Shane and Keith have mentioned last week we were part of, or as SATMC, we have partnered with the Road Accident Fund, and predominantly we are trying to talk about tire safety. And one, there's an element of the enforcement part, so that traffic officers are more capacitated in terms of what the National Road Traffic Act states and how they need to enforce it. That's the first one. And secondly, for them to also understand, I think we always say government is not doing anything. But pretty much, I mean, I think we've been doing this with SARS as well, customs officers, in the sense that they don't know what they're looking at. They only see the handwriting to say the tread millimeter must be 1 millimeter, which is outdated, by the way. And all of those things, we need to bring them to their attention so that they know what the right things are, which is the treadwear indicator. So we've partnered with the Road Accident Fund to try to roll out some of these trainings, and Keith is our expert who does this. And then also, I think together with our partners who are the members of the SATMC, we're going across the country, and predominantly now in the October season, which is Transport Month, and also going into November, December, January, which is the high traffic volumes, in order for them to understand. And also as commuters, when we stop the vehicles, it's an educational roadblock, where we then tell you, I think, the condition of your tires, to then say, maybe you need to go change, see what's on your vehicle. And then you are also empowered to also know that when you're transporting your family, it's in a safe environment and you're in a safe vehicle, and particularly on tires. Just to probably also clear, there was one question I think that Nabil touched on, which was very critical in terms of that overloading. A tire, I think earlier on we saw, I think Pete had it, there's a load index that's on the tire. So when the information or the sidewall of a tire gives you a lot of information. There is also limitations. So if you overstretch or overmount or overload the vehicle and the tire, that tire will fail, because there is a load index which says or guides as to what maximum load you can carry on a vehicle and each of those tires in a vehicle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll get back to you with another question just now about imports. All right. Who would like to field the question on TWI, what it means? Anybody know in the audience? You get about none of our staff. All right. Anybody else? You get a free driving course if you know what it is. TWI. Going. Heerlikheid, jy slim, né? Okay, you've seen a shiny afterwards. Who would like to field that question for us? Okay, Keith.
Okay, first of all, treadwear indicators. Why do tire manufacturers put treadwear indicators in? They do it for safety reasons. So the lower you run a tire, the more susceptible it becomes to punches, impact fractures, etc., etc. The biggest problem is your water dispersal rate. So in South Africa, your average standard, or worldwide, your average standard treadwear indicator height is 1.6 millimeters high. Although there are treadwear indicators that are set higher in certain tires, like your run-on flat or your extra load carrying capacity. The reason why this is done like this is because the manufacturer wants the tire to come off earlier. He wants it to come off at an earlier stage, and that is because of the casing construction. So there is a little bit of controversy at the moment with the 1.6 millimeters of tread remaining on a tire when it comes to National Road Traffic Act regulation. First of all radial tires have got treadwear indicators. It clearly states in the National Road Traffic Act regulation 212 that if a pneumatic tire is fitted with a treadwear indicator and the treadwear indicator is level with the remaining tread pattern of the tire is then deemed as smooth. Now, we have certain people in South Africa that reckon when it reaches the treadwear indicator, it's a warning, you still got 1.6 millimeters of tread remaining on your tire. No, you don't. Because should something happen on a wet road surface, you know what's going to happen. You could stand a chance of getting your claim or your insurance claim repudiated because tires are worn. So treadwear indicators are there for a reason. And this is why we are pushing so heavily with the Road Accident Fund and with the SATMC to educate your average driving public on the South African roads. You ask a lot of people, where is your treadwear indicator situated? They look as if you've just fallen out of Mars. They don't even know what it means. So that is what it's all about. Treadwear indicator on a tire is the legal limit. Once it's level with the remaining tread pattern of the tire is then deemed as smooth.
That's when it's a slick. Eh? Okay, guys, just for your information, on our website, masterdrive.co.za, there's a series of tips, travel tips, etc., that we provided. A lot from SATMC, what you should be looking out for on tires, from insurance and from a lubricant point of view when you check tires at a BP forecourt or so. Please visit it and you'll get some very helpful information. Shane, I can't remember whether you gave me this question or whether I'm going to give it to you now. All right. Tire warranties, we see. What what's the purpose of it, and what can we expect if we've done half of the life of a tire and we hit a pothole or something?
Yeah, so am I on?
Yeah, you
The
are.
manufacturer's warranties are basically set at like 5 years from date of manufacture, and every tire has got, when I say every tire, again talking about the SATMC and those that we're seeing in the country, have a DOT number on the side of it. You see it's a discernible number, and basically what that is that tells us the date that the tire was manufactured. We can tell which week and which year the tire was manufactured. The tires are given a 5-year lifespan where we warranty those tires under any form of manufacturing failure. Operational, like with anything, whether you've got a DVD player that you incorrectly insert a pizza into.
Oh, really? People do that? I didn't know.
You haven't been in my household, but yeah, so you know, it voids the warranty. And an impact puncture in a tire, there's no warranty on that. The tire is given a warranty for any manufacturing defect.
Okay.
So, and it's within that 5 years. And the reason why 5 years is because rubber starts to deteriorate over time. It's a natural product, and obviously what you start to get is just natural wear and tear or deterioration happening on the tire due to outside elements, and that would be environmental elements.
Thank you. Did I spring that one on you? You had you prepared it?
You sprung it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, let's just go to Nabil. There's a question from somebody in the audience on virtual. Oh, by the way, yes, somebody else gets a free course. We sent out, I told you how many, there was 160 registrations. How many would you guess? And Lauren gave me the number just now, are online at the moment. You get a free course if you get the number. No. Come on, why do you think I'm standing here? 300. Can I employ you as a marketer next time so that we can get the 300? GT tires, what do you say? Okay, just here's something take into account. The Springboks won the World Cup. So how many do you think are in attendance? Lauren, you want to give it to us? Okay, so 77. You owe me, sir. Who's it over there? GT Tires, you owe me. All right. Okay, thanks. All right, guys, let's get back to Nabil. So a question from somebody online. What don't you think, and I know I'm putting you in a spot here, but you can coerce and do to cooperate. Should the tire manufacturers offer free safety checks in the build up to the festive season? And if so, why aren't you doing it already?
So I think Ndu would probably be a better person to answer this question.
No.
But so the thing about it, Eugene, is that we actually do. So with the SATMC and the support of their homegrown campaign, each of the manufacturers in South Africa do team up with the SATMC to facilitate things like the roadblocks that Ndu was mentioning earlier on. The intention is not to get drivers into trouble, but rather just to ensure that their safety is happening on the roads over the festive period, where we try and facilitate premium and quality tires to our end consumers. The maintenance of that is essentially up to them. So I'm not necessarily passing the buck on entirely to Ndu, but I think with where these initiatives are happening and how they happen, I think Ndu would be a better person to give you an answer. But just before I conclude, though, something also just to keep in effect. Fair enough, roadblocks and being in the end consumer's face may definitely assist. But we also on our websites, and I'm sure the other manufacturers share a similar sentiment, is we do provide safety and tips similar to what MasterDrive has done on their websites. We try and keep the information readily available so that our consumers can at any point refer back to this material and ensure that they are compliant with regards to the road regulations. But Ndu, I think I've left hardly any spot for you to answer, but I'm going to make your life a little bit more difficult and to continue with that question.
30
please.
words or less, all right, Ndu.
Firstly, the bonus is coming, Nabil. It's as if we were scripted, but I think it's covered pretty much. And also, if you go onto our website as well, it's covered. But to answer the question, the 4 local tire manufacturers also have the retail franchise partners. So there will be MasterDrive, it will be High Qs, Dunlop Zones, and Super Quicks. All of them do that. When you visit them, they do offer the free checks and then to check your tires. But I think more than that, we are trying to empower the drivers or the consumers to do that themselves. And what you need to look at, and my two experts here are going to tell you that, I mean, before you take a trip, what do you need to look for on a tire, cracks, and also to say that the treadwear indicator is still intact. All of those things, I think we're trying to empower the consumer to do that themselves so that they can own, I think, that safety for their families.
Okay, I'm coming to you next, Al, but in the meantime, think about this. People go to a doctor, but before they've gone to the doctor, they've self-diagnosed, haven't they? So if they can do that, Google Doc.
Yeah.
So there's so much information available on the internet. And the greater majority when it comes to caring for tires is proper information, particularly if you go to the branded names. So let it not be an excuse. And sometimes, and I know the spirit in which the question was asked, but sometimes we have to take responsibility as drivers for our own safety. Dale, there's been a distinct absence of passenger vehicles from Ford in recent times or building up to now. But again, we've got the Puma coming. So it's launched now this month, if I'm not mistaken. So when we bring in a vehicle that's fully imported, what goes into choosing the tire that vehicle I will ultimately have? And by the way, do I have a choice? If I don't like that tire on that car, can I change it?
Yeah, so Eugene, you know I don't handle passenger cars, right?
Really?
Like
but you
Range is a
Ford.
passenger car. But
You
it's
Ford, eh?
not quite. Yeah, no, sure. I guess it's a similar approach to Rangers and Everest as well, right? You won't have a choice. The OE will decide what tires are going to be fitted, but it will obviously be what's the word, developed or designed for the market, right? So earlier I mentioned potholes and our roads maybe not being the same as Europe's potentially. So I think they would look at that and consider that when they fit an OE tire for a specific market. It's definitely a big consideration when fitting a tire to whichever product they're going to be sending to that specific country.
Well, when you look at Europe and UK in particular, they've got winter tires and summer tires. Eh? We just ride one set of tires. And when we get these imports that come in and we buy on the side of the road, do you know whether that's a snow tire that you fit into your car? Will it be able to cope with the heat that our roads generate? These are factors that are not taken into account. Just who I want to, let's just talk to Keith here, please. Let's talk about second-hand tires. When, okay, good, bad?
Absolutely not. First of all, it's becoming a huge problem within the South African tire industry is second-hand part-worn tires. First of all, the South African market's good for about 11.5, 12 million new tires a year. Of that, you're getting close to 2.5 million part-worn second-hand tires being sold in this country. And it's causing a huge problem for the 4 local tire manufacturers. And not only that, people are fitting these tires, they're purchasing them from next to the road. There's a reason why those tires have come off. Was that vehicle involved in a collision? Has that carcass or the casing been compromised due to a pothole or run flat damage or a repair that has failed, etc., etc.? The average motoring public don't understand this. They think they're getting a bargain of a lifetime. They're buying a tire for 50, 60 Rand and they're putting it on their vehicles. Folks, this is highly, highly dangerous. And it's becoming a huge problem right now because, as I said to you earlier on, tires are being sourced off scrap dumps and out of the back of scrap yards, etc., etc. So my advice to people is, please, for goodness sake, don't fit these tires because it's a problematic area for you. And you could stand a chance of a tire failing whilst on your vehicle with your family in it. So please do me a favor, don't do it.
Don't do him a favor, do yourself a favor. Eh? And other road users, because I'm sharing the road with you. And do import, now we're not talking about the bad stuff, all right? What's the makeup of the market for the guys who import tires fully, such as Michelin, Pirelli, etc.? How do we you as local guys manage?
Tire imports. Well, I think predominantly we own the market in terms of what we produce in the country we sell. So about 70% of the tire sales are local product. And I think there's a balance. There's always this question of saying that import tires are cheaper quality or whatever the case is. And again, I think you've mentioned that there are some pretty strong brands, and one of them is a leader in terms of global sales. However, I think as you start going down that sales list, you then start to have the quality questionable. And I think there's always also the question or the note of saying, from a local point, the 4 local tire manufacturers, there's still massive capacity in terms of producing the right tires for our conditions. And I think we exclude that. And I think to touch on what my colleague Vishal touched on earlier is that you then, as you go lower down, you then start to see that there's illicit trade or products that enter the market in the wrong ways. And predominantly also, that is why when you start to have the quality questionable. Last week, I got an inquiry from, it's a doctor, a professional doctor who says that he has what's a Range Rover supercharged. He says supercharged, and I fitted a particular brand. I won't mention it. Low down in terms of quality and where it comes from. And then he's laying a charge or an inquiry with the SATMC and the NRCS. And then first notes, I said, this is not a local tire, one that is produced by the local tire manufacturers, even globally. So where it came from, we just recently got an anti-dumping application positive for the SATMC or the local tire manufacturers. And that's where the tire was coming from. The tire had tread separation, meaning that the tread, what touches the road, had separated. And he's putting that on a Range Rover supercharged. And I mean, you are risking your lives by doing such things. And again, I'm not saying that all tire imports have cheap quality, but I think we need to be very mindful in terms of what we put on our vehicles. And again, to say that the products that are outputted from the 4 local tire manufacturers' factories are actually the best quality that you can find in South Africa and globally, because they're also interlinked in terms of supplying into their own supply chains internally for the vehicles, or let me say the tires that they produce globally.
Thank you. Melanie, what was you saying? Pennywise? Aren't foolish, eh? A Range Rover supercharged there. It's probably 1.5 million or something like that. And we put those tires on. Okay, Mark, we may have to ask you this question, but I'm going to ask the panel first. The role of tire pressures in ensuring that we get decent fuel consumption. Anybody here like to field it before we challenge Mark? Okay, Keith, and you can fill in afterwards, Mark.
First of all, yeah, as Mark earlier on said, CPK, cost per kilometer. Every transporter is fighting, or I wouldn't say fighting, but is wanting to get the lowest CPK within his fleet. And yeah, often with the 4 local tire manufacturers, we are evaluating tires within each and every fleet to see that we fit the right tire for the right application. The biggest criteria is that what a lot of folks forget is it's not the tire that carries the load. It's the air inside the tire that carries the load. You can fit the best tire in the world to your vehicle, but if you do not inflate it, maintain it, balance it, and check it on a regular basis, that tire will never, ever be able to react and perform. And this is why we have the 4 local tire manufacturers have in-field technicians. We are constantly going into fleets, doing fleet surveys to see what their cold pressure maintenance is, what the tires are doing, the performance of the tires. We're constantly monitoring tires so that we can assist the transporter in bringing his CPK down. Because at the end of the day, it actually boils down to fitting the right tire for the right application. And once you get that right, and yes, there are certain tires, you have long distance tires, which we call long distance. You have regional haul tires where the trucks run in and about town.
Get back to the question.
So yeah, tire pressure maintenance, sorry, it's a soft subject of mine. Tire pressure maintenance is crucial. And yeah, it's very important.
Mark, decently set of inflated tires. What percentage, if it's inadequately inflated, over or too little, what percentage variation can you experience?
Up to 20-25% increase in fuel consumption.
Yeah. Okay, guys. But we
just put that in context. So a truck 36, 38 liters per 100 kilometers. So you'll push it up to 46, 48, 52 liters per 100 kilometers over one trip of 8. It's really substantial.
Yeah. So the message is, how do we empower our drivers to make sure that those tires are adequately inflated? Vishal, we're talking about condition of tires. So let's talk about your pet subject, periodic vehicle testing. In the UK, you have called CPC, eh? Commercial vehicle drivers have to, I think it's 36 hours in 3 years worth of training in order to get what we call as our PRDP, which is 5,000 Rand. Eh? So let's just talk about your subject.
Okay, so one of the associations within the RMI is the Vehicle Testing Association. I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but passenger vehicles at the moment in South Africa do not require compulsory periodic testing. Now just think about that for a second. If you've had a vehicle in the family for 50 years, and that vehicle has not changed ownership because the individual is still alive, it means that vehicle does not have to have periodic testing. That's where we're currently at. Now just picture that for a second. You know, unless the car is changing hands, you don't need to do a check on that vehicle. That's a frightening stat. So the Vehicle Testing Association within the RMI is pushing very hard. You know, in the UK, you've got MOT, which is an annual process, to get periodic testing for passenger vehicles to be compulsory, at least initially, on a 2-yearly basis. Now we know the impact that would have on road safety, although we don't know measurably how much it's impacting. We know it's impacting, that's for sure. So we are pushing really hard, and you know, we're lobbying for lots of support. So industry sectors out there, if you are hearing this, please join our plight in pushing for compulsory periodic testing on passenger vehicles. It really is important for your safety.
Thanks, Vishal. Nabil, I'm going to come to you in a moment, and the question I'm going to ask you is about run flat tires. All right. I sent the question to you, so if you didn't read your messages, it's your fault. All right. Talk about tire repairs. You have a flat, and you pull into the garage, and the guy says, "Hey, I can fix it for you," and he puts a plug. Who wants to field what is the right and wrongs there?
Yeah,
Shane.
so tire repairs should, anytime you have a puncture, you should go to a tire shop, a dealer that will strip the tire off the rim, examine the inside of the tire. Because when a tire is running underinflated, and Keith has hit on this a couple of times, when a tire is running underinflated or an overload situation, we're actually changing the way the tire has been designed to flex in the sidewall. And as we run a tire underinflated, instead of flexing like that, we've now changed the angle of the flexing where more and more of the tire is exposed to touching the ground. So what we're not seeing, though, is what's happened to the inside of the tire. And perhaps the usual analogy just now about, you know, we Google everything with a doctor. So my mate hits me because he's excited about our win on Saturday night and my ribs are a bit sore. But if I go to the doctor and it doesn't go away, I go to the doctor, I might very well have a cracked rib. But I could, you know, go with that sort of thing. Same thing with the tire. Go to the petrol station. The petrol attendant sees you got a puncture. He's going to say to you $20, and he's got in his little plastic bag somewhere close to the petrol pump where he's working at a cheap repair kit, which is basically a gummed up string, and he puts that in the tire and he pumps it and off you go. And you've got your $20 and you seem to be happy and safe that you can ride on the road again. Go to a tire shop, the tire will be taken off. The rim, it'll be taken off the vehicle, taken off the rim, and the tire internal will be inspected. You may not hear good news, but you're getting the right advice. And that is, if you need to replace the tire, it will save your life, because an underinflated tire has already got internal damage in it. And if it has got a puncture and the tire is still okay, the attendant will tell you a mushroom plug will then be put into the tire, and that will also seal any penetration, moisture getting into the casing, which could also lead to the separations we've been speaking about as well.
Thank you. Did that make sense to you guys? Absolutely. You pay for extra comments, Keith.
Sorry. Yeah, first of all, you see it often where motorists pull into a filling station. Number one, why are you letting unqualified people work on your vehicle, first of all? Second of all, they don't know how far you've driven that tire in a totally flat condition. So you may have compromised the inner liner of that tire. You're now going to go and put a string repair in, which is probably way out of the tire recommendation repair limits. You're going to go and put the plug in. You think you've saved yourself a nice whack of money. You put the repair in, you go down the highway, and the tire fails because the inner liner or the carcass of the tire has been compromised. Who are you going to blame now? So my advice to you is please don't get tires repaired at filling stations. Go to a reputable dealer where they will give you the correct information.
Thanks. Nabil, run flat tires. How fast, how far?
80 and 80. So follow the 80-80 principle. Generally, when you have run flat tires, this gives you the opportunity to drive a little bit further to avoid having to stop on the side of the road to make that puncture repair or to change the tire. What we recommend on run flat tires is to travel at around 80 kilometers or at least a safe distance from the car in front of you, but use 80 kilometers as your maximum, and then travel for around 80 kilometers. As you do drive with the pressure being unstable, the tire does eventually start to lose its features and benefits of what it was initially made out for. So if you do have run flat tires and you are experiencing a puncture, just remember 80-80. Reason is that happened to me recently as well. So that's why I relate and resonate with that rule quite well.
Okay, while you're there, Mari Biscuit spare wheels.
So Mario Biscuits, similar situation, obviously depending on on what is it? Is it a full size spare or is it a replacement or a spare tire spare? Generally, when you have something that looks smaller than what is currently fitted onto your vehicle, again, we recommend that you drive this on a steady pace. 80 kilometers in this situation might actually exceed what you should be doing. So again, it's entirely up to you as the driver to make sure that you drive to your destination safely. Most importantly, it's something that you need to fix immediately. So do not delay. Do not think that you still have the spare tire on your vehicle and you can go anywhere and everywhere. This obviously does need to be addressed with a key tire retailer that's in South Africa, and they'll obviously be happy to help you.
Thank you very much. Who would like to field this one? Guy buys a motor car and it comes out with a standard set of rims and tires, and now he's been sold on the fact that he must fit low profile tires. Give us some advice there. What should they be doing and looking out for? Default to Keith.
It's fine. Actually, if it's okay, I'll take this one before Keith jumps into it. So it's always, and Dale should back this one up. It's always recommended to maintain the OE spec for the vehicle. That tire has gone through a lot of scrutiny on that specific vehicle with the number of tests. So we always encourage our customers to maintain that specific tire when doing the replacement cycle, or at least a tire that has similar capabilities to what the OE tire is. You do sometimes pick up where drivers purchase a vehicle with different intended purposes, whereas it was mentioned earlier on, your application plays a very important role. So for us, we look at it as on-road and off-road. Some tires do accommodate for all terrain patterns, whereas some are predominantly focused on going off-road. Each of the manufacturers that are represented on the committee have a variation of that. In this instance, it's always best to speak to your insurer, to speak to the OEM helpline, but also to speak to your tire expert to ask him what is the application, what tire would be best recommended for their vehicle, as they do have the expertise in this. But what the rule of thumb, always try and maintain what is being an OE spec on your vehicle.
Okay, I'm not going to let Keith answer because we'll finish at 3 o'clock this afternoon. All right. Okay, here's one. We're getting close to wrapping up. When we start looking at we know, and I think you gave us some figures, Keith, on the filling stations that have tire inflation. So this is how unreliable they are. So there's the possibility it could be underinflated or overinflated. So what should a motorist or a driver be doing to make sure that he gets the correct tire pressures? And then just unpack what are the dangers of driving with under or overinflated tires. Who would like to field that one? Keith, you want the moment? Go for it.
Okay, so first of all, as you all know, the service stations pressure gauges are not always accurate. So yes, you could potentially get a tire that's when you checking your tire inflation pressures, you could get a tire that's now way overinflated, or simply you're not getting enough air into your tire, so the tire's running in an underinflated condition. Second of all, with overinflated tires, your tire has less relaxation length in the sidewall, so it's prone to more impacts, cuts, snags, etc. The vehicle also becomes very unstable on the road because you're minimizing your footprint in on the shoulder areas of the tire, because you're merely lifting the shoulder areas up. When you're not getting sufficient air inside the tire, you are now imposing a lot more load onto the shoulder area, so your crown area or the center of the tire is not making contact with the road surface 100%. This is also extremely dangerous when on wet road conditions, because a vehicle can aquaplane or hydroplane because the water gets trapped in underneath it. The carcass of the tire also runs hotter. Now, for you folks that don't know, heat is a tire's biggest enemy. The hotter a tire runs, the quicker the wear rate, the quicker the performance levels of a tire do drop off, unlike in the racing scenario. So a passenger vehicle tire works in a totally different manner. And then my suggestion is always inflate your tires when they are cold. Never, you'll see it now in December, you know, everybody's going on holiday, they're all in holiday mode, caravan, dogs, cats, uncle, opa, and they're down on the highway, and when he gets to Harry Smith, he realizes I haven't checked the tires on my vehicle. So now what happens is that vehicles run 300-400 kilometers, the tire's been flexing, the tire's built up internal heat. Now you pull into a filling station and the petrol pump attendant knows two pressures, 2 bar and 2.2. So now when you puts the pressure gauge onto your tire and he sees 3 bar, what's his first reaction? Yo, overinflated. So what does he do? He lets air out of the hot tire. That is one of the worst things you can do. You never ever bleed a hot tire. So my advice to you is check your pressures the night before, and then tomorrow morning, get yourself your own pressure gauge and check the pressures on your vehicle before you leave on a long distance. Do not touch your pressures again until you reach your destination, unless you perhaps get a puncture or slow leak like that. But invariably, inflate the tires, cold pressure, and then don't touch them throughout your journey until you decide to come back.
Thanks, Keith. Our MasterDrive tip is get yourself a reasonably inexpensive and the quality tire pressure gauge monitor. You know what we do? If you go to a local filling station and they pump it, because you're not always going to check your own air. But if those balance pretty much accurately, you can know for the next month or so that those that gauge is working reasonably well. But take the responsibility as a driver. Don't blame the garage or the forecourt attendant. It's not their problem. So we've got 5 minutes, guys. Dale, I'm not going to ask you the question, well, I'm going to leave it hanging, is do you recommend certain tires over and above others' brands? I'll just leave it hanging there, you know, you can get his personal opinion. Give me your take-home message from each one of you. Is Nabil gone? Were you there, Nabil? I put him on the spot and he ducked now. All right. What's your take-home message in 30 words or less, Dale, from this? I'll come back to you afterwards if you want. Go for it. Okay, let's start with Keith. 30 words or less.
30 words or less.
Yeah.
Okay, so before everybody decides to go on holiday this year, do yourselves a favor. Pull into any one of the 4 local tire manufacturers' dealerships. Ask them to check your vehicle out. These guys will gladly assist you. These guys are the professional. Take heed to their advice. There's too many people that are driving on tires that are not in a roadworthy condition. We want to keep the deaths down this December. So please practice safe driving behavior. Check your tires, get your vehicle maintained, and take it easy on holiday. You know, you've got 2-3 weeks to get there. You've got another 2-3 weeks to get back. So take it easy.
Thanks, Keith. Nabil, this take-home message from you, and just by the way, while you were absent, we committed to you giving 4 Goodyear tires free to a lucky candidate here tonight. What's your take-home message?
Yeah, so I think my take-home message just resonates a little bit what Keith mentioned. If you are planning on traveling away this festive season, there's a lot of information, tips, and advice that was given on this call. But try and pop over through to either the MasterDrive website, the SATMC website, or one of the key local manufacturer websites, which I know that has a lot of tire tips and information. The safety and responsibility obviously of your family rests with you. So before you go out, make sure that you're extremely confident with what you're doing and what you're driving and where you're driving to, and make sure that you are abreast of all of the information and tips that have been given on this call.
Thank you. Shane.
Am I on?
Yes,
yeah, right.
On.
So sticking
4
with the
tires,
theme,
8 tires, count going up.
I was going to give 12.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you know, sticking with the theme of the day, which is the corporate accountability in fleets, I think accountability sits with every driver and every fleet manager. And, you know, reach out to the local tire manufacturers. That's what we're here for. We're here, you know, to assist. We're here to get involved. We're not here to always just sell tires. We're here to sell solutions and assist you. And I think that's one of the biggest things is you know, they see us as snake oil salesmen, always out there to try and sell a tire. And we're actually out there to offer solutions. So talk to us, as they said, TMC members. We're out there to help you guys. And we can give a lot of training. We won't charge for it. Yeah, we might get some benefit from it, but what will happen best is everybody benefits.
I would actually challenge some of the audience to know what a snake oil salesman is. Okay, Dale, please, you're up next.
Yeah, sure. No, I think Nabil mentioned it quite, you know, try and stick to the OE tire, right? We often see the guys before they take their car for showroom have new fancy wheels and tires fitted. They've been tried and tested and so many miles and Ks done, you know, from the engineer side. They've been specifically designed and developed for that vehicle. Try and stick to the size and the, you know, the tread that's specified for that specific vehicle.
All the hot guys are going to say killjoy, eh? Okay, but no, it is possible, but please speak to the tire guys who are experts if there's going to be a +1 or a +2 or something like that. Don't read it. You've read it in Car Magazine or no, some Ride Fast or something, and you go to a 22-inch tire, you know, looks cool, but not great to work with. And we did just before Ndu's parting message, we did some tire testing with them a while ago at Geritech. The difference between we're talking wet surface, all right? Because you know why you have tread on a tire? Who wants to guess? Come, speak up. No, not you. So you hogging the high love. Come, anybody else? Any ladies? Why do we have tread on a tire? For grip, that's a good one. I like it, but it's not the answer. Guys, shush. Oh, Chantal over here. Come.
It's to disperse the water.
Give her a hand, guys. Big one. Okay. Thank you. All right. Your message. Sorry. And what we found, double the distance on a tire with good tread as opposed to a 3/4 worn tread. Double the distance stopping, eh? And do.
Some shocking stats there. Firstly, I think as SATMC, thank you to MasterDrive for the event. I think we always look at it in the different silos, in the sense that there is the tire manufacturers, there's the OEMs, and probably, let's say, the general public. And I think we need to also now start to have that view to say we're fighting the cause together of safety, because I think we are all on the same roads, and I think we use good tires. But my parting words, trading the influence, well done, Nishani. And I think for the SATMC and from my side, it's always the decision point. I think we make the decisions to say you check your tires when you take the trip or you don't. You make the decision when you say you're buying the tire from the side of the road. You make the decision of not checking your treadwear indicator. You make the decision of putting your family in a vehicle or a tire that, one, you do not have any technical expertise or knowledge of. So I think we now are empowered to make better decisions, and better decisions for our families, for ourselves, and to ensure that we keep the road safe. And less, I mean, I think it was 14,000 annually, and that translates to 40, just under 40 people a day. We can change that narrative. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndu. Vishal.
Yes, thank you. So from my side, certainly as TIPA, as the RMI, one thing we pride ourselves on is consumer education. We've identified that there's a huge gap in the market in terms of consumer education. Not understanding these grudge purchases is as important as making the right purchases. And, you know, some of the media interviews we experienced, you know, people would say, how do you identify, you know, X and Y? What are the telltale signs for a consumer? And that got us thinking, because it made us realize that consumers actually don't have a clue. And if we can't answer that question by educating them enough, then we are lagging behind as industry. So we've taken a very active role in educating consumers, and with simple things like, you know, just enough to ask questions when you're at a fitting center or when you're at a repair shop. Ask enough questions to empower yourself to be able to gather the right information before making the purchase. So for us, consumer education is critical. As the RMI collectively, I think in 1 year, we've done just over 4,000 placements of consumer articles, which goes out there and it shows that we're making a difference. So whilst, you know, websites and all of that are great, it means the consumer has to log into the website. versus getting out there and putting the message out to consumers in the broader audience. And that for us is working and yielding good results. Thank you. That's my
Thank you very much. I'm going to put the CEO of the, guess what, Gavin, Road Freight Association. Gavin, any parting messages from your side, from the audience, please? No, you're part of the audience that's going to comment. Message for truckers.
So really, you always ask the question, where does road safety start? It starts with each and every one of us. I don't know how many of you do a pre-trip inspection every time you get here. Only time any got a white motor vehicle license inspection was in the yard test. So really, the parting shot is three things.
Yeah.
Can the virtual audience have
You know, Gavin is always good for a laugh when you have him along at an event.
so they really
Switch it on.
I found it. So there are really three things. First of all is you've got to do your pre-trip inspection on your vehicle. We're coming to a stage when everyone's going to drive on the road, so your pre-trip inspection. The second thing is in actual fact allowing those following distances and driving here today as an extra thing. You know? It's amazing to see how many vehicles on the road, just by looking at them, you know, here's an accident waiting to happen in your parlance. And the third thing, and the most important thing is your vehicle suited for what you want it to do? And you hear all about these fancy tires they fit in. Are you talking about my Uno? So please make sure that the vehicle that you are using, if you're going away on holiday, you're taking Omar, Skoonmar, and you're on the right side of Omar or Skoonmar, that the vehicle that you are using for whatever you're doing, moving passengers, moving whatever, it's the right vehicle for the right situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Gavin. With that parting message, we're going to say thank you to our panel. Thank you, Nabil. You don't have to run away. Just give them a good round of applause, please, guys. And you may be seated. While they've been seated, let's just share some things that from a MasterDrive perspective. Oh, by the way, if you want to send your drivers along, we teach them how to do a pre-trip inspection. And you'd be surprised how many can't do it thoroughly. All right. A couple of things that we would like you to take away the festive season. Don't drink and drive. It's a given, eh? And let there be a responsibility on the companies who are organizing year ends to control the amount of alcohol, whether they do that by not having it as an option or ensuring that their staff get home safely with ride-alongs, designated drivers or whatever. Distracted while driving, I've given you the stat, it accounts for 60% according to one insurer. Let's that be another statistic. And distracted while driving has greater application, but the most dangerous one is use of cell phones. And you've seen everywhere, you get to a traffic light, the traffic light, what's the first thing they do? There's dangers. I don't know if you watched about smash and grab and things like that on carte blanche. The next thing is, please obey the rules of the road. We're not killjoys, but there's a maximum speed limit for good reasons. It keeps traffic flow, and when the speed reduces, please follow along with it. I missed last year through Friedenberg in the Cape. I didn't see it reduced to 60 from 100, and I've got a no admission of guilt fine. I've got to go and plead. You know, please be conscious of road signs and what's happening around you. Following distance, Gavin mentioned. Please keep a good following distance, and particularly when there's lots of holiday traffic, because that will prevent rear-end collisions, which result in multiple cars piling up over there. And then, of course, the final one is we have a motto that says, drive nice, it's contagious. So just before we go to the prize giving, which I know you all came here for. So thank you, Nabil, for the tires. Thank you, Shane, and where's Keith? Let's just bring Melanie up here. Please, Melanie, I want you to join me for a moment. And in conjunction with BP Castrol, We'd just like to share this video with you that is available on our website. Please come join me, Melanie. And just thanks to Melanie, what we've been able to do. Please view. Is this the first time you've seen it? It's 90 seconds or less, circulated internally, externally, wherever you want. That's good safety advice. And Melanie will be our headline partner. So come on, come. There we are. Thank you. And for our other headline partner, as long as you promise not to hug me, Pitt. Pitt, waar's jy? Waar's Pitt? Oh, there you are over there. Okay. He's probably, his grip is like a gorilla, so I better even be careful when I shake his hand.
You don't want to hug me.
There we are. Thank you very much for making this available to us. All right. Okay, folks. So that's the formal part of the proceedings over. We're going to give away some prizes now. You know what? I'm going to make this easier for myself. I'm going to ask Nishani to read it. All right. Yes. Okay, Nishani, there we are. Have we got a mic? Oh, there we are.
So we've got 4 Ford hampers, and we're going to start with the virtual audience. We've got Amber De Souza. This will be sent to you from Deraro Group. We have Nati Mapanga, Nolene Vandia, and Pamela Singata from our in-person audience. Do we get them to come take it now?
When we finish,
Okay,
let's just do the announcement.
So when when the event's over, you can see Sam, we get the prizes. With compliments from Dunlop, we've got 2 hampers, and we've got Freddie Matoka from Eskom and Tariq Munaf from Aeon. And then we've got 2 F&B hampers. I'm not sure. Did we see what's in there?
It's an overdraft for 100K, guys. All right.
So for the 2 F&B hampers, we've got Natalie Mpele and Artie Fontaine. Then this is also a very nice one. Thank you to one of our headline partners, Santam. We've got a 500 Rand Take A Lot gift voucher, and this goes to Tammy van die Kerk from our virtual audience. Also, we've got 2 Equestra hampers, and this goes to Skuliswa Nyaka and Hilary Brink. We have 5 Scania hampers, and this goes to Felix Sabata, Kungeka Majoja, Siposetu Sibayo, Vian Jardine, and Brenda Fenter. Thanks, guys. And we've got an Avis hamper, and this goes to Nelisiwe and Kosi from Scania.
Well, congratulations to all the prize winners. But if I can just finish off by saying thank you to our headline partners. It's really as a result of them that we can make this. It's not a money-making operation. We just do it in the interests of road safety, and hopefully we carry the flag where others cannot. And if we can make a difference in people's lives, 1 day, 1 kilometer, 1 life at a time, we've accomplished something. So Castrol, thank you very much. Santam, I know I have to thank Anton specifically over there. Anton, just wave at the audience. Okay, but he delegated to Pitt to do the presentation. And then in order of importance, no importance, Arrive Alive, sorry, that's our media partner. You've visited their website, a disseminator of great information. Avis, Bridgestone, Castrol, Dunlop, Equestra, FMB. Can I speak to you about my overdraft afterwards, please? Okay, okay. Ford, Pernod Ricard. And by the way, just guys, open your minds. And here's a challenge that I have. People are quick to demonize alcohol at this time of the year. drink kills all these. It's not. It's the person, as we said, and you said, the driver makes the call as to whether they're going to buy those tires or not. And in so doing, so does if somebody decides to drink. RMI, Santam, and Scania. And with that, we'd like to thank you for being part of the MasterDrive family. We will see you at our next event. If anybody would like to partner with us, or you'd like to, and here's the punt, talk to me about driver training, you're more than welcome. So to everyone, all panelists, speakers, give them a big round of applause, and thank you again. I'm not sure, is there still refreshments outside? There's still refreshments. You're welcome to network, and see you again.